Hey everyone, thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new to this channel, we don't really usually do these kind of videos. We have about 2 videos up like this, but it's not really our normal thing. We normally just do movie reviews, but we're going to try to see if we can start doing these more often. We don't know how much more often. We're just trying to do something different. But thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're interested, you can go on our description below, and we have a podcast called the Awesome Padron Podcast if you want to click on that. But today I want to talk about Avengers Endgame. Because so far, my favorite movie of the whole year is Avengers Endgame. Now, I understand this may come off as me being a Marvel fanboy, but to be honest, I could never really consider myself that. There have been a few of their movies that I don't really consider to be that good of movies, and I'm not oblivious to the flaws that are just part of the universe itself. Namely, the overabundance of humor in places where they feel wrong. But Endgame, although a lot less clean of a film than Infinity War, I still have trouble deciding which one I like more. Even though there are a few flaws in this movie that I have seen myself, I fail to understand a large majority of the complaints of this movie. To me, it seems that most people are mad at this movie because it didn't give them what they wanted, but instead gave them what makes the most sense to the characters and the plot. I'm going to go over the complaints that I have heard that I don't agree with, and I'm going to explain why I don't agree with them, and why Endgame made the better decision and not the fan service decision. The first complaint I'm going to go over is the complaints that I've heard about Thor. A complaint that I've heard about is that Thor was made into a loser of a character, and it makes fun of mental illness. If you tune out after the first 30 seconds, sure, but if you think about it, most people with depression try hard to play off the tone that we first see in the overweight Thor. They try to seem happy and carefree. The scene displays the tone that Thor is trying to present himself as. He is trying to look happy and carefree. The comedic tone of it shows this, but not too much later we get serious scenes of how broken he is. One of the best character moments in the movie is when Thor leaves Asgard in the second act, and he realizes that he is still worthy because Mjolnir flies back to him even though he thought he was unworthy of it. This displays a great lesson that no matter how worthless we feel, no matter how much we have dropped down, we can still be worthy of greatness. Some people also wanted him to slam down his hammer and go back to old Thor. I was actually worried throughout the entire movie that they were going to do this because it would have been stupidly lazy and cheap, and it would have completely destroyed the point. It would have shown that in order to defeat Thanos, Thor had to be his old self, which would have ruined everything. And like Thor's mother said, everyone fails at being who they're supposed to be. The measure of a person is how they succeed at being who they are. Throughout his whole life, he's been striving for things greater than himself. But at this moment, he realizes that he needs to look at who he is and strive for the greatest thing that he can be each day, which is a great lesson. He is able to be just as powerful and just as happy about himself as he was before the snap without a fit body. If he would have become fit again at the slam of his hammer, it would have been saying that in order to defeat Thanos, he had to become who he wasn't at that point. People also don't like to understand why this happened to Thor. I mean, think about it. In Infinity War, Thor even goes through a list of his losses.
So dead brother, huh? Yeah, it can be annoying.
Well, he's been dead before. No, this time I think it really might be true.
And you said your sister and your dad,
Both dead.
but still got a mom, though?
Killed by a dark elf.
A best friend?
Stabbed through the heart. You know, I'm 1,500 years old.
Not to mention that all this happened in the span of 10 years out of 1,500, losing the land of Asgard, as well as failing to protect most of the Asgardians in the beginning of Infinity War, having to kill his sister, and his dad lying to him about his sister. Killing and stopping Thanos was Thor's chance at feeling any sense of self-worth. Not only was that taken from him, but he was the only character through the whole movie that 100% had the opportunity to kill him, and he didn't because he was too focused on revenge. This is all part of a long character arc that spans across 3 movies from Ragnarok to Endgame. And honestly, it's the most interesting Thor has ever been. Also, some people are mad that the character took this turn. Well, if I was partially responsible for half of the entire universe dying, I'd be pretty down on myself too. Another character that has his fair share of complaints is Hulk. I want to start off with some complaints that were also said in Infinity War about Hulk that kind of lead into why I do believe the complaints about Hulk in Endgame don't make sense either. In Infinity War, after Thanos beat up Hulk wouldn't come out. And people thought this was because Hulk was scared. Hulk was not scared. He was done. He was tired of being used as a weapon. This arc was presented in Thor Ragnarok when he tells Thor,
Earth ain't home.
Earth loves Hulk. They love you. You're one of the Avengers, one of the team, one of our friends. This is what friends do. They support each other.
You're Banner's friend.
I'm not Banner's friend. I prefer you.
Banner's friend.
it wouldn't make sense to just use him as a weapon again in Endgame. That would be lazy writing, and it would completely ignore an important plot point of Infinity War and Ragnarok. Also, they couldn't get rid of Banner and only have Hulk. Banner realized the only way to get past this and make him and Hulk both happy would be to let part of Hulk out at all times. Therefore, also creating a 3-movie arc from Ragnarok to Endgame. And also, people try to act like the Hulk didn't do anything in Endgame, but he risked his life by snapping to bring half the universe back. The next character I want to talk about is Thanos, because people have been saying that what Thanos does by trying to kill everyone on Earth goes against the character in Infinity War. Well, it really doesn't. You see, the reason we had such a different perception of Thanos in Infinity War was because Thanos was the protagonist and the Avengers were the antagonists. We understood things from his point of view. He made us believe that he was doing this for the good of all living creatures because he himself has lied to himself enough to also believe that is why he's doing it. Also, Infinity War was years after his character in Endgame, so he had kind of been humbled over the years of searching for the stones. Endgame has switched protagonists, and we now know why Thanos does what he does. Sure, he wants to rid the universe of poverty and famine, but underneath it all, he's an egomaniac and a sociopath, and that is it. He isn't doing what he's doing purely for good. He believes he is God. He believes he is responsible for everyone's fate. He believes he should be in complete control. And as he said in Infinity War, once he's killed half of all beings, he'll be able to rest and look over what he believes will be a grateful universe. When he realized that the Avengers went back to change it, this idea that we didn't appreciate what he did angers him because it breaks down his ego. It's also the same reason he didn't create unlimited resources in Infinity War. If he had created unlimited resources, that would have meant he didn't have to kill all those people that he had before the gauntlet. But really, that's all he's trying to do. He wants to be God and choose our deaths. He now wants to kill everyone and create a world that feeds his ego. But if he tells this to himself, it would rip apart everything he believes in. This is why he is such a compelling villain. The next point I want to bring up is the complaints I've seen about time travel. Now, this is one that I can kind of understand, but at the same time, the time travel does make sense in this movie. There were a few things that made sense if they had been explained more, like Thanos and Ebony Maw replicating the Pym particles, so that's why he could come to our reality. Also, Cap being at the end as an old man doesn't make sense unless you realize that when he went back in time to return the stones, he was able to use Pym particles to return to the main reality when he became old. This has actually been confirmed by the Russo brothers. But here's a question. When has a time travel movie ever been perfect? If you don't like this movie because the time travel aspect may have plot holes, which there isn't many if you pay attention, then you shouldn't like most time travel movies. Time travel movies are some of the hardest movies to make, and I almost never care about plot holes in the time travel movies enough to take away any points. Also, plot holes in general are pretty stupid to take points off of a movie to an extent. The next thing I want to talk about is probably the most controversial aspect of Endgame and of the MCU right now, which is Captain Marvel. And I've seen a lot of people talk about how Captain Marvel ruined Endgame. And here's my question. How on earth did she ruin the movie? Even if you don't like her, which there's not really a reason to hate the character, she was barely in it. Some people even said she did nothing. Well, if nothing also means she stopped Thanos from snapping, and this time from obliterating all life on Earth, then yeah, she did nothing. People also say, well, why didn't she help them earlier? Well, if you pay attention, you know that she has a lot more to do. She didn't even know what they were doing until Thanos was beginning to destroy Earth. She also didn't even know to come down to Earth at all until Nick Fury paged her in Infinity War. Also, that haircut is in the freaking comics. Now, a lot of people got mad when the women gathered up together to fight in the last act of the movie, but there has been plenty of times in real life where women gather to support one. Also, some people are like, they left what they were doing just to have women gather up for SJWs. Okay, maybe so, but if you paid attention instead of just getting mad, you'd realize they are stopping the freaking gauntlet from going to Thanos, which is unarguably the most important part of the fight. I do have to admit though that Captain Marvel really didn't need help, considering she could have easily blasted through everything. Now, one complaint that makes absolutely no sense to me is how slow and sad the movie was. I mean, what did you expect? Half the world just died and Thanos and the Infinity Stones were their only hope, but Thanos destroyed the stones. So do you expect them to jump up for joy at any point through the first 30 minutes? No. To them and anybody else in the scenario, it is over. They had lost. I've seen quite a few people say that Hawkeye should have died on Vormir instead of Black Widow, but there are two big reasons why he should not have died. One, because he has a family. Do I believe this makes you worth more in real life? No, but it's a good argument as to why he should have lived. Also, why start off with that amazing scene in the beginning of Hawkeye losing his family? After that scene, you badly want to see him with his family again. So now, him being with his family again at the end makes it that much more satisfying. I love Black Widow, especially in this movie, but there's not much of a reason to be mad at her death. I've seen a few people complain that what Captain America did was wrong by going back in time because he didn't join the Avengers in the other reality. But this complaint also makes no sense because we have already seen that if you go back in time, your other self is there too. So this means that Cap not only deserved to relax and be with the woman he loved, but he could do it knowing that his other self was going to do what he did in the previous MCU movies. My complaint. Now, even though I found this movie near perfect, I do have one complaint, and it's probably my biggest complaint I can think of, and it does take off a little bit from this movie. I don't have a problem with Sam being Captain America, other than the fact that he doesn't have super soldier serum, so I can't understand why people aren't a huge fan of it. But what I didn't like is that the last conversation should have been between Cap and Bucky. I don't care what it would have been about, but that should have been the last conversation. Bucky was with him from the beginning, and we've had a few conversations between Cap and Bucky that were calm and carefree, but after Cap learned Bucky was alive, we never had a heart-to-heart conversation between the two that was calm and occurred while everything was happy and relaxing. But we've had a few fun, relaxing scenes between Cap and Sam. Bucky was a huge part of Steve Rogers' life and a huge focus of all three Captain America movies. In fact, Bucky was the main focus of Winter Soldier and one of the main focuses of Civil War. I just wish we got one happy conversation between Cap and Bucky where everything was okay. I absolutely loved Avengers Endgame though. The Russos had a huge passion for this project and it was obvious, writing the most meaningful death for Tony Stark. I even like characters that really were never that important to me in the past, like Thor and Hawkeye. I have minor issues, but they really aren't that major. There isn't a ton of perfect movies, but this one was near close. The whole final fight scene was one of the most epic things I've ever seen and one of the most satisfying things I've ever seen. The callbacks to former movies were never forced, but just felt natural. I honestly cannot decide if I liked Infinity War or Endgame more. Infinity War was everything I wanted it to be, but Endgame told me everything I wanted it to be. Endgame is a movie that respects its audience by taking a lot of risks in the hopes that we will understand their decisions. And this is why this is one of the most respectable movies to me. Well guys, if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also comment and let me know what you thought about this video. Maybe we can have a nice little discussion below. Maybe if you liked it, even if you didn't like it, let me know and tell me why. I'm really interested in those thoughts. Also, you can go in the description below, and like I said earlier, you can look at where we have a podcast called the Awesome Padron Podcast, where we try to put out weekly podcasts. If you don't really want to, if you prefer using podcasts on things like iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play, we actually have the podcast on those three platforms as well. Anyways, guys, we also have social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at 2 Awesome Men. And thank you so much for watching, and you will see us, well, you will see me and my cousin Zachary later.